Hey, how are you doing, everybody? Welcome into the SFS channel and another Week 10 fantasy football advice video. In this episode, I'll be breaking down my top 30 running back tiers and rankings for this upcoming week's games. Now, full disclosure and a little disclaimer before we pop into today's episode. I am recording this on Thursday evening, pre-Thursday Night Football. The video is coming to you at your streaming disclosure or preferences, whatever the word is for that, on Friday morning. So technically, two key names in today's episode, actually maybe just one, maybe two, we'll see. So watch today's episode and find out. Will be in today's video. They have already played, so you can just fact check me and see where I was right and where I was wrong if you want to play that game and type of thing. So other than that, all 28 or 29 other names in today's episode will not be covered or have not played yet, rather. So stay tuned, check that stuff out, and let's dive in. All right, so for the wide receiver position here, we know who the best are every single week. I like to try and be efficient as possible with these videos for you guys and not eat up too much of your day, because we've got two different episodes to check out. So I'm just tossing the first 5 names up here in the elite wide receiver ones tier. If you want the matchups, it's Tyreek Hill versus Cleveland. It's Justin Jefferson versus Chicago. Cooper Kupp, one key note here. Stafford in concussion protocol has knocked him down a couple of pegs here. John Wolford just isn't a quarterback I trust to deliver him those top end, best of the best numbers. Could happen in a one-game stretch, but for that reason, he's my wide receiver 3 this week. As always, I should preface this as well before we get too far. For those of you new around here, the numeric rankings move left to right. I just don't have the graphics available for me to put the numbers up on screen, or frankly the time to edit that stuff into there. And then for Stephon Diggs, number 4 versus Minnesota. Devontae Adams, number 5 against the Indianapolis Colts. The Jeff Saturdays, if you will, here. Let's dive into the next tier. All right, same deal with this tier here. Then we're going to get a little bit more in depth with the bubble wide receiver ones and everyone else going forward. So it's the 6, 7, and 8 receivers here again. DeAndre Hopkins taking on the Los Angeles Rams. Not the easiest matchup in the world. That defense has played well. Their offense has been abysmal. A.J. Brown taking on the Washington Commanders this week. Devontae Smith gobbled these guys up in week 3. We'll see if A.J. can take the swing back in his direction against a poor bottom third passing defense against fantasy receivers. And then Jalen Waddle here taking on the Cleveland Browns. Another situation where this guy is just one of the most talented playmakers after the catch in the NFL. He is one of the most speedy players in the league, behind probably just his own teammate Tyreek Hill. He can fly. If he touches the football, he's dynamite. He's gold with the ball in his hands. He's going to put up nice ceiling numbers on a pretty frequent basis. All right, diving into our bubble wide receiver ones for this week. This is going to be our ranked 9th through 12th overall receivers. So kicking it off with Amon-Ra St. Brown, a guy whose stock is undoubtedly down right now, a guy who I still continue to have faith in and believe in here because of the week-to-week target volume opportunities. He's just got to cash in and score some points here. So this is a guy that has dealt with an ankle injury this year, a concussion, and ever since week 2 has really left a lot to be desired on the table, and has not hit those ceiling numbers since the aforementioned week 2 marker, where he had 3 touchdowns in his first 2 games played this year. So for ARSB, it's plain and simple. He has had 9 or more targets in his last 3 fully healthy contests. That volume is excellent. Your 27 targets over 3 games, 9 targets per game. I can take that. I can live with that. It just has to, and that's really the bottom line. It just has to, end up resulting in that end goal that we're looking for here. Good old CeeDee Lamb taking on the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau this week. Now, the one thing I kind of found here that's a little troubling is that CeeDee Lamb, since Dak Prescott's return, has just 13 total targets. So if you go back to the Detroit game where Dak returned to action, and then the Chicago Bears game. Now, those are some interesting game scripts. There was some quickly changing dynamics in how those games unfolded, but it is something to look at there. This week, again, has the Packers. Their secondary is a little bit bait up right now. They lost their best pass rusher for the season, Rashawn Gary. He's out for the year, so hopefully Dallas doesn't get out in front run too early against this struggling Packers team. If that is the case, that could hurt his fantasy stock here. Of course, the ceiling is excellent and phenomenal. A fun fact, the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants are one of 2 teams this year that do not have a single wide receiver to have a 100-yard performance yet in 2022. So keep your eye out. CeeDee Lamb, that's unfortunate because we projected him to have a monster ceiling this year. Could maybe break that this week. We'll see. Mike Evans taking on the Seattle Seahawks, one of the longest voyages in NFL history. It is for the Seattle Seahawks, in fact, and DK Metcalf at my wide receiver 12 spot. For Evans, he's questionable heading into this matchup, but if you look at the numbers, they are glowing. 37 total targets in his last 3 games. It's like Amon-Ra St. Brown here. Cash in on the opportunities. You've got a high-level quarterback, Tom Brady, not playing superb or his best football of his career right now, but that can change. Of course, the momentum from last week, I think, is a big deal. This is not necessarily fantasy football related, but I do think that this offense has the opportunity to take steps in the right direction this week. They got to get more buttoned up. If you see the drops, Mike Evans is guilty of leaving fantasy points on the table for simply not catching the dang ball. Chris Godwin, same deal his direction. We'll talk about him in a little bit today. It's all kind of self-inflicted problems here, and lazy routes or unsharp, uncrisp routes are resulting in a lot of these targets being thrown at their ankles because Tom doesn't want to throw a pick and lose a possession and get down in the turnover differential. So lots of stuff to break down. It's a complex situation in Tampa Bay right now. Mike Evans, though, still has my vote of confidence as my wide receiver 11. DK Metcalf, like I said, longest travel in league history from Seattle, Washington to Munich, Germany. Good morning. Wake up, folks. It's going to be an early contest there. Don't stay out too late on Saturday night. It's going to be quite the interesting situation, again, for me personally, trying to wake up and stay awake that early in the morning to watch these games. But as always, we love our football fans around the world. Happy for them to get this game. I actually think it'll be a pretty good one here. Actually talking some DK Metcalf in this matchup, though, here. This is a guy that suffered a knee injury, got carted off the field just 2 weeks ago, and has scored a touchdown in back-to-back games. So very interesting stuff. Shows you the superhuman, freaky nature of DK Metcalf. This is a Tampa Bay defense that I don't necessarily feel too concerned about in terms of their ability to prevent DK doing what this offense wants him to do. He's a monster. He's extremely hard to defend. And Tampa, I don't think, really has the personnel to match up with this level of size. So if he gets the opportunity to catch a touchdown reception or make a big play downfield, I'd be hard-pressed to say that that doesn't come to fruition and equate to fantasy points in this week's games. You could argue that he should actually be maybe a couple of spots above here in the tiers list, but that long travel, especially for this team, still having some question marks about that knee injury that was supposed to be kind of a 3 to 5 week recovery time frame that literally did not hold him out, it is rather shocking to me and just kind of creates a very unique situation that we don't typically see very often. All right, kicking off the elite wide receiver 2's tier with Amari Cooper here against the Miami Dolphins. The thought is simple here. In games where Amari Cooper and his offense need to score points to match the opponent, he typically tends to do better. He is the clear and unquestioned wide receiver 1 in this offense, and as I said, produces more points when this team gets into situations where they need to throw the ball to either keep up or to press the needle in contests. And this is a matchup against a high-volume passing team in the Miami Dolphins, high octane. They've got receivers running around left and right, literally like at insane rates of speed. They're going to need points in this game, or at least I expect that there will be a need and necessity to score a bit more points than the Browns tend to average this year. So projecting a bit more involvement, downfield opportunities, and use for Cooper in this game. Deebo Samuel, big news here for Deebo. He's a full practice participant on Wednesday. Looks to be trending towards being a player available in the Los Angeles Chargers matchup this week. Now, Deebo may not be 100% healthy. He may not be at 100% usage rate in this game, but he is a talented playmaker. It only takes one catch for him. That's truly something that I believe. This is a guy that, with his level of physicality, break a couple tackles, boom, you're off to the races. Sorry, you're not catching Deebo. So for this game, it's kind of interesting. The Chargers' back end has been weak and allowed a lot of points to opposing fantasy receivers. This is not your traditional fantasy receiver, though. This is a run-after-catch weapon and machine that needs to get the job done with his physicality and, again, creating yards after the catch, after contact, all that great stuff. So matchup doesn't necessarily play a super big role or factor into this one here, but I do think that this is an opportunity for some high ceiling play this week. And then Chris Olave taking on Pittsburgh. Their secondary is just not equipped to deal with this talented of a playmaker. Now, they have some nice pieces in the back end of Pittsburgh, but again, Olave is an alpha wide receiver in this offense right now. Looks like MT's out for the year. Jarvis Juice Landry has also been out for a large portion of the year, and even when he's on the field, I am not worried about someone else taking away looks from Olave here. So really the only thing I see holding him back is if the Saints just blow out this team and totally take over the game script of this matchup. But off a bye, I'd be a bit surprised to see a Mike Tomlin team come out unbuttoned and really struggle in that phase. So expecting 4 full quarters of opportunities for Olave this week. All right, here we go with our wide receivers 16 through 20. Tyler Lockett, DJ Moore. We've got some interesting stuff to talk about with good old DJ Moore. We'll get to that in a second here. So for Tyler Lockett, this is another situation where I just feel really comfortable with him in lineups on a week-to-week basis. He's been very reliable. He has had 6 double-digit point production games this year. I saw this is totally offbeat of his actual fantasy matchup, but I saw this hilarious meme on Instagram where apparently Tyler Lockett is opposed to getting tackled this year. There's clips of him every time he catches the ball. If you ever played Madden, hitting the A button in possession or catching and just crumbling down to the ground after the catch. This dude literally has not gotten tackled yet this year. He is on the field catching passes, and if he's about to get hit, boom, he hits the deck. It's like he's playing quarterback trying to slide, but he just kind of curls up into the fetal position and just rolls over. So kind of funny, still producing in spite of it. If he wants to stay healthy for fantasy teams, hey, go you, buddy. Support the heck out of you doing so. But Tyler Lockett, on a serious note, fantastic receiver. He has been exceptionally better than I expected him to be with Geno Smith this season, and it's been a really nice surprise for the Seahawks pass catchers. Juju now, good old Boo-Boo Smith-Schuster. So Juju, coming off of a statement game against the Tennessee Titans, 12 targets, 10 receptions, and I talked about this week. I think he's established himself as the 1B option. Now, let's call him the B option. Travis Kelce is the A. Juju is not a 1A to Travis. He is a B, but he is the B now, and that is important because before it was kind of the pure wide receiver by committee approach. You never knew who was going to step up and take grasp of the offense every week. Juju, to me, asserted his dominance for this football team in a target perspective and a physicality perspective. He looks to be the guy in that receiver room for Patrick Mahomes right now. So loving that. Coming into this matchup against Jacksonville, they're 9.5-point favorites. Game script is the only thing that can hold him back here, but the Chiefs as double-digit favorites at home tend to not cover at an extremely high rate. Christian Kirk, the other side of that matchup, expecting extra additional looks for him this week. Why? They're 9.5-point underdogs on the road at Arrowhead Stadium. You're going to be playing the Chiefs. You're going to have a lot of intensity in this matchup in a pressing urge to throw the football, trying to keep pace with this team throughout 4 quarters. So Christian Kirk gets my green light. We're putting him in lineups this week. Loving that situation. Chris Godwin against Tampa Bay. He plays for the freaking Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Against Seattle in Munich. This is the 4th time, I believe, today we brought up the Germany game. But for Godwin, he's a lower-end, strong wide receiver, too, for me this week because the opportunity and volume are spectacular every week. But the crispness of the offense is not. His routes don't look the same. He doesn't look as explosive. It can all be sourced to the struggles of the offense or his ACL injury or some combination of both. I get it. I want to be patient with him. I want to, give him the benefit of the doubt. I want to be patient, like I said. But it's the reality right now. His ceiling is not as high as it once was. At this current point in time, that could change. But I am being a little bit pessimistic with him here in these upcoming matchups. Seattle's secondary has also been kind of stingy against opposing fantasy receivers. So for Godwin, though, it's been 62 targets in his last 6 weeks played here. It doesn't really get much better than that. That's over 10 targets per game, and love to see that continuing down the road here. And then DJ Moore, the Thursday Night Football matchup. Important note here. So, again, you're watching this in hindsight, so you've got 20/20 vision on what happened in this game. You can call me out and say I'm an idiot in the comment section below if I totally whiff here, and I'm wrong about this. We started the week. DJ Moore is a must-start player. Today, 2 hours away from kickoff, I'm thinking about pivoting from that. Why? My initial take, PJ Walker's back in the lineup. He's been the guy that's kind of rejuvenated DJ's season. Last week got benched after the first half. It all fell apart with Baker out there. For DJ, they scored 21 points. I get it, whatever. I don't really care, to be honest. DJ Moore, I'm saying, PJ Walker's back in the lineup. Never thought I'd be using that as a positive analysis for starting a player. but we are here. I was expecting a rebound game here. Atlanta was the matchup where PJ and DJ connected on that humongous Hail Mary-esque deep pass down the sideline. It was like a 4 verts type pattern, and they scored a touchdown. DJ has a great game and has back-to-back 16-plus point production games. Then, the thing that makes me scared today, there is rain and wind in the forecast. This is not a high-level quarterback. I like PJ Walker. He's not Josh Allen. They're not going to ask him to rip the ball through the wind and throw the ball and air it out for 4 quarters against this Falcons team. Both of these teams can run the ball. We know that. I don't think it's going to be a monsoon. I'm expecting just unpleasant weather circumstances. They'll throw it a little bit here and there, but my expectations have been significantly lowered for DJ Moore in this matchup after hearing that weather information. So I think I'm going to put out a piece of context, a community post on the channel before kickoff saying, hey, not so confident in DJ tonight anymore. And I, respect and support benching of him in certain circumstances. I actually dropped him a few spots in the rankings. I had him up higher on this tier pre-weather concern. I consider dropping him into the bubble wide receiver 2 territory, and that might be a fair assessment and evaluation of him. Again, he is my wide receiver 20 currently. That is the very bottom of the wide receiver 2 tier and 10-team format. So keep your eye on this. Could be ugly. We'll see what happens, though. All right, into the bubble wide receiver 2 tier now. These are my receivers 21 to 26 for this week. So Gabe Davis, another name that could instantly, snap of the fingers, drop down just like that, possibly into the flex tier with the simple injury news that could go in a negative direction with Josh Allen. We don't know if he's playing yet. If Case Keenum's out there, sorry, Gabe, you're hitting my bench. That's really all that needs to be said about him here. He has a matchup this week against the Vikings. It's decent if Josh is out there. I would regardless expect a bit of a diminished passing game script regardless, but do have my skepticisms, as always, about his floor this week. That's heightened even a little bit more. Josh Palmer taking on San Francisco this week. Don't love the matchup. It's okay. It's not great. It's not terrible either. What scares me off of Josh Palmer, what encourages me about Josh Palmer is the fact that once again he's positioned to be the alpha receiver in this offense for this week's matchups, simply due to health-related concerns of the other 2 receivers in this offense, Mike Williams, who I almost assuredly will be out, and then Keenan Allen, who is considered day-to-day right now with his hamstring. So health of others is what has the biggest impact on Palmer's value this week. Brandon Ayuk, same thing here. Health is a big deal for Deebo Samuel as it relates to his value. I think that Deebo, after having a full practice participation on Wednesday, looks poised to have a nice involvement on Sunday. Deebo has my confidence this week. Ayuk can still be a nice wide receiver 2 play, but I think that the expectation that we've seen kind of develop after his last 3 games needs to be kind of chopped down a little bit, and I think we need to level our expectations for what he does this week. Allen Lazard, no more Romeo Doubs for the next 4 to 6 weeks with a high ankle sprain. More opportunities for Allen Lazard. He's been scoring touchdowns this year. He's been Aaron Rodgers' go-to target. Expect more work for him going forward this season without Romeo on the field. Terry McLaurin. This is a matchup where you look at Terry. They've got the Philadelphia Eagles. Terry surprisingly scored 12 points against Philadelphia in Week 3. It's a tough matchup, especially on the perimeter. But this time around, he's got himself the good old the Taylor Heineke machine here. So we'll see how that factors in. I believe it was Carson Wentz the first time around, because if I remember correctly, it was the Green Bay game that we first saw Heineke against the Packers. Yes, because Carson got injured against Chicago on a Thursday. It was a standalone primetime game. But regardless, irrelevant information. It should be a different quarterback playing this week against Philly. Again, those cornerbacks are tough. They scare me a little bit for Terry, but he's a very good receiver in his own right. So as long as he gets the opportunities, he should be able to produce in some facet. He had 9 targets, 5 receptions last week. A bit of a disappointing 8-point game in half PPR against Minnesota, but you never know with Terry. He could bounce back. His ceiling, of course, is very high. And then Jerry Jeudy taking on Tennessee. Love this matchup here. He's had 7 or more targets in 4 straight matchups. He's coming off of a bye week here. So you get a good matchup in the secondary. You get a team that should be on extra preparation here. And you get the fact that he has out-targeted Cortland Sutton in 2 of the last 4 games. So all positives here for Jerry. Seems like his stock is pointed up at least a little bit, and excited to see what he does in this week's matchup. All right, last up, our receivers 27 to 30 here, starting it off with Devontae Smith. So Devontae, you could make a strong argument that he deserves to be a lot higher this week. The thing for me with Devontae Smith is he's coming off back-to-back games under 5 fantasy points, so there's kind of that situation where you feel a little bit of the fact that he is due to have that pop-off game. And then if you look at his best game of the season, it was week 3 against this same Commanders defense that he was making moss catches, just catch after catch, just dominating defensive backs. The Slim Reaper was out, and he was in business in that game. Let's say that. He had a 26.9-point game in half PPR scoring. Again, deep ball, touchdowns, like he was doing it all in that matchup. It's definitely in play for this week's games, but again, A.J. Brown's the alpha here. He needs to get those secondary targets and the opportunity to play make on vertical pressing routes in order to get his ceiling where it needs to be to feel comfortable starting him. Courtland Sutton here, his stock has definitely been trending downwards. He has had 2 games in the last 4 contests played under 5 targets. That is bad news. As I said, Jerry Jeudy's targets have been more consistent, and Courtland, he's been a little bit banged up here and there. Who knows if Jerry Jeudy is finally finding himself in this offense, something we predicted in the preseason. Regardless, the prediction is still not really true because he's still not a top 24 receiver every week. But for Courtland, it's a good matchup at the very least. He's always a threat to score a touchdown with the size and frame. We'll see what happens here. Darnell Mooney's got Detroit, very weak secondary, opportunities to play make downfield, be incredibly efficient. That's what he needs to do. Justin Fields is breaking out as a rusher. He looks good. He's getting better every week. He is still most versatile and dangerous as a rushing threat. This passing offense is not peaking yet. Mooney is good. We know that. He can stretch the field. He's incredibly fast and athletic. But at the end of the day, I still don't trust him to be a dependable weekly start, even in 12-man formats. You can roll the dice on his upside. You can bet on him to, win your week potentially if you would like to. But just know that floor is still not there and is still not something I feel very comfortable with this week or going forward. And then Michael Pittman makes the list because of his talent. That's really it here. This is a situation where Jeff Saturday is coming in on literally a week or less notice to take over this organization. And I believe it was Monday that Frank Reich was relieved and Jeff Saturday took over. And you're asking him to come in here and coach this game plan against the Raiders on 6 days, maybe even 5 days if you consider game day not being a preparation day. I don't see how that works out. The only reason that Pittman's here again is because he's a big body who can score touchdowns in the red zone. But if I'm Jeff Saturday, and I'm not, but if I was the head coach of this team and I was completely over my skis, unprepared for this matchup, this guy has no NFL or collegiate coaching experience and was 3-7 his last year coaching high school football in 2020. If I was Jeff Saturday, which again, I said this already, but I am not, I would turn around. I would take the snap under center from Sam Ehlinger, and I would hand the ball off 35 to 40 times a game, depending on how many offensive snaps I get in this contest. I am not putting the ball in harm's way. I am not trying to be Einstein in this contest, and I'm not throwing the football. Therefore, the floor for Michael Pittman is insanely, incredibly low. I think they'll keep the same playbook. I don't think they're going to install anything crazy, but I do think that this is a very slippery slope to play here. Unfortunately, I have a league where I literally have to start Michael Pittman because of injuries at my other receiver positions, but overall, this is a situation and a spot where we're looking at that I have little to no faith in for this week's games. So, as always, thank you guys so much for tuning into today's episode. If you enjoyed, click the subscribe button, like today's episode. We've got our running back tiers and rankings up on the channel as well. Go check that stuff out, and I will see you in a future episode. Peace out.